Bryan Danielson possibly suffers another in-ring injury last night at AEW Collision tapings in Canada. Wes Lee announces he's set to undergo back surgery and could miss up to a year of action. Chris Jericho comments on CM Punk's return to WWE. Randy Orton discusses his recovery from his back surgery. TKO comments on the possibility of scaling back WWE house shows. We have the completed field for the Iron Survivor Challenge matches for the women and females of NXT. Lexis King versus Carmelo Hayes is seemingly unofficially added to NXT Deadline this coming weekend. Nikita Lyons officially makes her return from injury, attacking Blair Davenport on NXT last night. Toni Storm is set to be introduced by a celebrity guest tonight on AEW Dynamite. The NXT Men's Breakout Tournament is set to begin next week, and the field of competitors has been revealed. And we have the ratings for this week's edition of Monday Night Raw. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Bryan Danielson, and has he suffered yet another injury? Bryan Danielson has reportedly suffered another eye injury in the ring during an AEW Collision taping. Now, AEW Collision taped its show in Montreal, Quebec, Canada for the December 9th airing of the broadcast, and it featured a match between Danielson and Andrade El Idolo. As the next phase of the Blue League Continental Classic, the two faced off in the main event, and it was reportedly as fierce as one would expect from these two. But with Danielson already previously suffering a notable broken orbital bone and has been wearing an eye patch in a match that was actually against Andrade El Idolo previously on Collision, it seems now things might possibly have been exacerbated. Now, you're going to have to take all of this with a pinch of salt, but according to fans who attended the Collision taping, Danielson seemed to have suffered another injury to his eye, as El Idolo seemed to be poking them to the point where Danielson was seen bleeding soon after. The members of the Blackpool Combat Club then went and checked on him to make sure he was okay, but it's yet to be revealed the extent of the potential injury. We actually have a video from the match in question. Take a look at this and let me know your thoughts about it. Now, Danielson returned to the ring earlier this fall due to following another injury, so fans are definitely going to be even more worried over whether or not this leads to any more potential surgeries or anything like that. Previous updates from AEW showed that Danielson could have been out for the rest of the year following his previous injuries, but Danielson has gone on to have some big matches such as this one against Andrade El Idolo. With AEW Collision coming up later this week, there might be an update after that as well. Now, it must be stressed, Bryan Danielson has been well known to work fans and mislead fans into thinking he is injured when he is not. When he broke his arm, they said he would be coming back possibly at WrestleDream. He was backed by All Out Wrestling Ricky Starks in the main event. Previously, during an episode of AEW Rampage, I believe it might have been even one of the Grand Slam episodes of Rampage, he appeared to get his leg caught between the elevated ramp and the ring, and it looked like there was a serious injury. Turns out it was an angle on the show. In addition to that, it has been reported by people on social media that were at the taping last night on such sites such as Reddit that Danielson was just working. This is all part of a big work. For instance, someone on Reddit says, quote, "For what it's worth, Danielson bladed a couple of times. I've never noticed anyone doing that at a match that I was at live, but it was super obvious from where I was sitting. He and Aubrey passed the razor. I assume it was a razor back and forth. Really good match though. I thought Claudio and Eddie was a little bit better." So some people in attendance saying it was just part of the match. Some people on social media saying, no, he could possibly be injured by the way that the medical staff were surrounding him. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's legitimate? Do you think it's just a case of Danielson playing off the fact that he's been injured multiple times and numerous times this year, so he's getting people concerned and getting people worried and getting people to tune in for an episode of Collision this Saturday, which won't be live, it will be taped, and people will have to tune in to find out if indeed the injury is legitimate? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Speaking of injuries, Wes Lee announced last night on WWE NXT that he's going to be out of action for quite some time. The injury bug has once again bitten WWE NXT, this time taking out the NXT North American Championship #1 contender Wes Lee. Lee announced on last night's NXT that he has an injury that will require treatment and he will be unable to compete for the foreseeable future. It was later announced that he would be out of action for 8 to 12 months. This left NXT North American Championship champion Dominic Mysterio without an opponent for the upcoming Deadline Premium Live event on December 9. Mysterio initially gloated about this fact until his father, WWE Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio, interrupted to announce that he will have to actually compete this coming weekend at the event in Bridgeport, Connecticut against former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, SmackDown superstar Dragon Lee. Now, Dragon Lee and Dominic previously feuded over the title back in August, with Mysterio coming out on top. Before that, Dragon Lee had been a stalwart of the North American title division. Dragon Lee last competed at the Survivor Series War Games event, where he was defeated by Santos Escobar, defending the honor of Carlito in the match. Of course, Escobar, as I mentioned, was victorious. Now, Chris Jericho has opened up on CM Punk's return to WWE, of course, both being former AEW stars. On September 2nd, Tony Khan announced that AEW had terminated CM Punk's contract with the company with cause following his backstage incident at AEW All in London at Wembley Stadium. More than 2 months later, at Survivor Series, CM Punk made his return to WWE for the first time in nearly a decade. Now, during his stint in All Elite Wrestling, Punk found himself at odds with former AEW World Champion Chris Jericho reportedly backstage. Speaking on Insight with Chris Van Vliet, Jericho explained why he wasn't surprised to see CM Punk's WWE return. He said, quote, "I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's the Vince attitude, like you can make money with someone, you bring them back. He's brought back the NWO, he brought Bischoff in, and Vince isn't in charge. But Triple H learned from Vince once again, and the fans, keeping the fans entertained and happy. Man, look, he came back. It was the highest viewed social media segment they'd ever had. So right out of the gate, it was a benefit to them. So it didn't surprise me." So, do you think that Chris Jericho could one day go back to WWE, or do you see him completing the remainder of his pro wrestling days in AEW? Let me know your thoughts about that. Randy Orton has discussed his recovery from his back surgery recently. Randy Orton has opened up on his recovery from his serious back injury. At Survivor Series, the same event that Punk returned at, Randy Orton made his return to the company for the first time in 18 months after suffering a serious back injury and getting double fusion surgery. Orton teamed with Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn to defeat the Judgment Day and Drew McIntyre in the men's War Games match on the show. Speaking with Logan Paul on the Impulsive podcast, Randy Orton said and opened up about his recovery from the back injury and surgery. He said, quote, "I'm like the only guy that's never left and come back other than John Cena, but I'm going to be here for the rest. This is me. I'm not moving on to Hollywood. I love what I do. I just had 18 months off recovering from spinal fusion. I was kind of faced with the fact that I might not be able to do this again, so it's almost like I got a second lease on my career here. I'm not going to take a day for granted, not a second in that ring for granted. So now, even more so than the matches you would have seen a year ago when you first started, I'm feeling even more in my element now." So Orton revealing he's feeling back better than ever, and he's not going to take a single second for granted. Now, TKO possibly could be scaling back on WWE Live Events. WWE owner TKO has revealed that they are considering removing WWE Live shows from certain markets as part of ongoing efforts to cut costs. Despite the current success of the business, the latest insight from TKO Chief Operating Officer Mark Shapiro has hinted at a major change to the promotion's live event schedule. Speaking at the UBS media conference, as quoted by the Wrestling Observer, Shapiro revealed that non-televised house shows in smaller regions could be reduced in the coming years as a way to steady the financial bottom line. Quote, "From a margin perspective, they're dilutive," he said. "They're probably an opportunity as we go through our synergies and efficiency opportunities to cut back on some of those non-televised events, which, of course, will push our margin up. We're going to scrutinize every dollar on production for every single event, every single one of these telecasts, and improve our savings," end quote. With revenue and crowd attendance at an all-time high, as well as public opinion swaying in a positive manner over the past 18 months, it's been a smooth transition from the Vince McMahon era to the new look TKO group that has seen Triple H and Nick Khan take over the operations of WWE. The merger between WWE and UFC from earlier this year has yet to have any significant impact on the overall TV programming or schedule, but these comments from Shapiro could be a certainly nod to a fresh approach. At this stage, there has been no confirmation regarding the cutbacks in live events, but the company has ceased its home video distributions following Crown Jewel. They will finish them at the end of the year. Going back to NXT, Tyler Bate is going to be competing this weekend at NXT Deadline in the Iron Survivor Challenge match. The men's Iron Survivor Challenge field is now complete, and the 5-men contest will now get a dose of British strong style. Tyler Bate won the last chance fatal 4-way on NXT's on Tuesday night, defeating Eddie Thorpe, Joe Coffey, and Carmelo Hayes to earn entry into the match. The second men's Iron Survivor Challenge match will take place this coming weekend at NXT Deadline. Bate will face Dijak, Trick Williams, Josh Briggs, and Bron Breakker in the match, which begins with 2 superstars, with another superstar joining every 5 minutes. Once all 5 wrestlers are in the match will continue until 25 minutes have elapsed. At the end of that 25 minutes, the wrestler with the most pinfalls or submissions will be declared the winner. Last year's match was won by Grayson Waller. In addition to that, we now know the completed lineup for the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge match as well, after another last chance 4-way match last night. Tuesday's episode of NXT kicked off with a last chance fatal 4-way match where the winner would be granted the final spot in the 2023 Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. Competitors in this match included Roxanne Perez, Thea Hale, Kiana James, and Fallon Henley, all of whom had lost their previous qualifying matches. Toward the end of the bout, Perez looked to be setting up for a pop rocks on Henley. Unfortunately for Perez, James intervened, causing the two to then brawl to the outside of the ring and later crash through the NXT commentary table. As Perez and James were preoccupied with each other, Hale tried to secure a roll-up on Henley. Henley promptly responded back with a running knee though, earning herself a 3-count pinfall on Hale for the victory. With this win, Henley will now move on to face Tiffany Stratton, Lash Legend, Blair Davenport, and Kalani Jordan in the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge this coming weekend. What are your thoughts on the completed lineups for that? Now, speaking of that Women's Iron Survivor Challenge match and the last chance fatal 4-way match last night, coming out of that, we actually have another match taking place this coming weekend as well. As I mentioned, Roxanne Perez brawled with Kiana James, and because of that, Kiana James will now be facing the former NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez in a steel cage match. This match will now be taking place this coming weekend as well, so certainly the field starting to become more apparent for NXT Deadline this weekend. Speaking of this coming weekend's NXT Deadline event, we now have an unofficial match between Carmelo Hayes and Lexis King. It appears NXT newbie Lexis King will be opening this coming weekend's Deadline Premium Live event. King looks like he will be facing former NXT champion Carmelo Hayes in the first match of the night. At least it seems that way. Now, the match or fight brawl segment was set up during this past Tuesday's episode of NXT with some help from NXT Anonymous. The mysterious backstage informant shared a video of Hayes making a phone call to someone right after speaking to Trick Williams, the same day Williams was attacked. King, meanwhile, has been claiming that he's the one who was behind the mysterious attack on Hayes' former friend. If that's not bad enough, King has been costing Hayes important matches like a spot in the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge, which will also be taking place at Deadline. Following the release of the video, Hayes sent a message to Shawn Michaels by way of Ava Raine, indicating he wants a Deadline match with King. Williams, meanwhile, confronted Hayes, who continues to insist his innocence. Williams told Hayes his match with King would open the show, while Williams' own match, the Iron Survivor, will close it. Now, it should be noted that none of this has been made entirely official as of right now, while all signs point to Hayes versus King opening Deadline. The show's preview page on the website, which has been updated with other results from last night's show, including the Iron Survivor matches, Dragon Lee replacing Wes Lee, etc., does still not show Hayes versus King on the card as of this recording. Similarly, no mention of that match took place during commentary's rundown of the card on Tuesday's broadcast, so if we get any more confirmation on this, we'll let you know, but as of right now, it's not been announced, but certainly something looks to be happening this weekend at NXT Deadline. Now, Nikita Lyons is back in WWE NXT, returning from injury. She was shown in the crowd last week, and now she's back officially on the program as well. Following Fallon Henley's entry into the 2023 Women's Iron Survivor Challenge last night, WWE hosted an official summit to preview this year's landscape. As the 5 competitors took turns boasting about their individual accomplishments, Blair Davenport pointed out that she had previously taken out several members of the NXT Women's Division, including Sol Ruka and Nikita Lyons. Unfortunately for Davenport, this statement came back to haunt her very quickly. Amidst the ongoing match between Nathan Fraser and Axiom, Henley and Davenport, along with Tiffany Stratton, Kalani Jordan, and Lash Legend, emerged onto the stage, with several referees attempting to cease their brawl that soon transferred into the ring. After receiving an elbow to the face from Jordan, Davenport began to retreat. There was no escape, though, as Nikita Lyons rushed from behind, nailing Davenport with a kick to the head. Quote, "That was just the appetizer," Lyons warned Davenport. Now, prior to her return last night, she was shown in the crowd last week on NXT. In terms of her in-ring presence, Lyons has been absent from competition since January of this year, when she sustained a torn ACL and meniscus. Lyons was then written off WWE television upon being attacked by a mystery assailant in the NXT parking lot. The perpetrator, of course, was later revealed to be Blair Davenport. After spending 11 months on the shelf, Lyons now appears to be back and looking for revenge. So that one certainly could play into this weekend at NXT Deadline as well. Timeless Toni Storm, talk a little bit about AEW once again, is going to be introduced by a special celebrity guest tonight on Dynamite. AEW's Timeless Toni Storm owes a lot of her presentation to Turner Classic Movies, and in a bit of corporate synergy, TCM is repaying the favour. AEW CEO announced on X that TCM host Ben Mankiewicz will introduce the AEW Women's World Champion before her match with Sky Blue on Wednesday in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. TCM is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery as part of the Turner family of networks that includes AEW's home networks of TNT and TBS, and has already tweeted in its excitement of the partnership, writing, "It will be, quote, a classic in the making." Now, Storm's road to the AEW Women's World Championship paid homage to numerous hits of classic Hollywood, such as films such as Sunset Boulevard with RJ City, often referring to himself as AEW's own personal Mankiewicz before introducing her various films each week, referring to Mankiewicz's role as TCM's veritable master of ceremonies for the Classic Film Network, and even getting the attention of the man himself. Storm's films have wrangled in not only City, but the deathmatch superstar Dr. Luther, who has served as, I guess, Storm's manservant. Storm was also gained a #1 fan in the recently signed Mariah May as well. Storm began imitating Sunset Boulevard's Norma Desmond after losing the women's title to Hikaru Shida in August. Storm descended further and further into madness, leading to her only appearing in black and white and even appearing to wrestle with a script. Storm finally won the title at AEW Full Gear back in November. Now, switching gears back to NXT, the men's Breakout tournament is set to begin next week, and we now have the field of competitors as well. During Tuesday's episode of NXT, it was announced that the men's Breakout tournament kicks off next week on the December 12th episode of the show. We also learned the 8 men who will participate in the tournament. Who makes up this year's field? The list includes Obafemi, Riley Osborne, Keanu Carver, Tavon Heights, Dion Lennox, Luca Crucifino, Miles Bourne, and Trey Bearhill. The winner of the tournament gets a future shot at any championship of their choosing. Monday Night Raw star Cody Rhodes announced the return of the tournament, as well as the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic on the October 10 episode of NXT. The last men's Breakout tournament was in 2021. The winner was Carmelo Hayes. Hayes has found success since then. He's a former 2-time NXT North American champion, as well as a former NXT champion in addition to that. Finally, we got the ratings for this past Monday's edition of Raw as well. Now, last week's Raw featured the returns of Randy Orton and CM Punk and drew an even bigger audience than usual, including the highest numbers in both total average viewers and viewers in the coveted 18 to 49 demographic in months. Alas, with a big number generally comes a letdown or a decline the next week, and Monday was no exception. WrestleNomics reports that this past Monday's episode of Raw drew 1.533 million total viewers, as well as a 0.49 in the 18 to 49 demographic. As expected, both numbers were down from last week, with total viewership falling 19% from last week's 1.884 million, while the 18 to 49 was down 25% from a 0.65. It wasn't all bad news for Raw, however, as the show was up in total viewers from the week before Punk and Orton's return, which drew 1.459 million viewers, and it was actually pretty much level in the 18 to 49 demographic. Raw started off strong, as usual, with more than 1.7 million viewers tuning in for the show opening angle between Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. The promo segment led seamlessly into the advertised match between the two, which actually gained viewers and set a high watermark for both total viewership and key demo. The audience gradually declined from there, though there were a few spikes for Nia Jax versus Shayna Baszler, the promo segment between Cody Rhodes and Shinsuke Nakamura, and the end of the World Heavyweight Championship main event between Seth Rollins and Jey Uso. As is always the case in the fall, Raw faced strong competition from football, with Monday night NFL game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars drawing 16.5 million total viewers across 3 different stations. Raw also didn't have the benefit of either Orton, now on the SmackDown brand, or Punk, who will be back next week after an appearance on SmackDown this coming Friday. So there you go. So there you go, guys. It's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.